Hello, hi everybody. Mike Drutar, principal broker and owner of NextHome Paradise Realty. Want to do something a little bit different, see if you guys like this. I want to give you our monthly market report in video, so you have to do less reading. I can also share some more stories with you a little bit more naturally and conversationally. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Really appreciate your feedback. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please click the subscribe button. Let's get into this month's market report. We're seeing some really interesting data for the month of October. Now, October is traditionally one of the lightest months of the year in terms of units sold. It's also one of the lighter months of the year in terms of the amount of business that we do. Both those are blown out of the water. We're going to compare our numbers for October of this year to October of last year. Island-wide, we saw 278 sales of residential properties this year compared to 217 last year. That's an increase of 28.11%. Then we look at condos and we see really quickly that there are some definite winners and some losers in this recent market change. The number of sales of condos last month was 81 compared to 78 a year ago. So that's only a difference of 3 units, 3.85%. So we see quickly there's a lot of movement towards the residential side of the market. Now that's island-wide. Let's look at units sold for West Hawaii. We look at two different areas. We look at South Kohala and North Kona. In South Kohala, we saw 34 sales compared to 28 last year. That's 6 more sales and an increase of 21%. For North Kona residential, this is a big number. We saw 67 sales in the month of October. That's unheard of. That's compared to 41 last year, an increase of 63.4%. Massive. Now let's go look at the condos again. And these numbers are going to be really similar to what we saw at the island-wide level because most of the condos that you see are going to be in North Kona and South Kohala. South Kohala, we had 32 condos sold. That's an increase of 5 units, 18%. And in North Kona, we saw 43 units sold. That's an increase of only 3 units, 7.5%. So the trend that we're seeing island-wide is also being seen here in our West Hawaii market. What about median price? This is always the sexy stat that people like to look at. Usually I would say that in October, don't look really close at this because traditionally the units sold, the numbers are down, and so we don't have a good sample size, and that makes our data get a little bit skewed at times. But we already know we have good sample sizes because we had a lot of sales this month. South Kohala median price residential, $715,000 compared to last year at $580,500. That's an increase of over $130,000. That's a 23% increase. Now looking at North Kona residential, and this number I've never seen. This is the highest median price I've ever seen for any single month in this market. $869,000, an increase of 32.6%, above $655,000 for October of last year. Massive change. South Kohala condominium sales can often be a little bit skewed due to developer sales, but they look pretty much in line. We're seeing a median price of $718,500. That's up from $705 a year ago, an increase of 1.9%. Not a big jump. The North Kona condo market is seeing a little bit of an increase where it's $371,000 is our median price compared to $342,500 in last year. That's an increase of $28,000. A nice, sustainable, modest gain that everyone would be happy with normally, 8.32%. Compared to the residential numbers, it seems like it's lagging though. These are some really interesting numbers, and the big question is this sustainable? Now, we know on a long-term cycle, a 32% increase is not sustainable. The question that a lot of us are starting to ask is, will it change and go down? If so, when? And if it does, how much? And those are really tough numbers to look at. There's a number of different dynamics that are in this market that are going to make it really difficult to predict what happens in the future. I was speaking with an agent on Oahu, another broker from NextHome, and we had a really interesting conversation about what happens with future supply. Are we going to have more turnover or are we going to have less? With these super low interest rates that we're seeing right now, people might be very resistant to ever giving that up. Let's say interest rates in 5 years are back at 6%. Are you really going to want to sell your home today with the great mortgage that you have and go to a 6% loan? Does that limit future supply? And if that future supply is limited, how does that impact pricing if demand stays static? We all know supply and demand and how that works. If we're not increasing supply, the prices are going to go up. So counter that with what appears to be a little bit of a spike in prices. Normally people would think if there's a spike in prices, you're going to see the prices come right down, but I'm not exactly sure that we do see a big drop. It's a really interesting conversation to have. There's a few other things to kind of take into account. This information was from CoreLogic, just released today. We're talking about here the delinquency rate of loans in the United States right now. The national average is 6.6%. Here in Hawaii, it's 7.8%. So what that means is 7.8% of all loans in Hawaii are not paying their mortgage right now. The rumor that we're hearing from people in the banking industry is that they're going to take the gloves off when this forbearance period is over. If you're in a forbearance, understand what your rights are, but understand that you do still have to pick that up when the forbearance period ends. It sounds like they are not going to be holding off on foreclosures because the market is so high. They're going to want to take advantage of that. So you might find if you're in a position where you are in forbearance and you're in an inclining market and you have positive equity, it may be wise to get ahead of that really quick before the market turns over, because you could see a bunch of properties possibly coming on the market if it's people who can no longer pay their mortgage because their job situation has changed and the forbearance period is over. There could be some buying opportunities in the future. Unemployment claims, August 2020, Hawaii is leading the nation, 19.8%. That's according to CoreLogic. Now let's talk about mortgage rates. November 5th, 2020, the mortgage rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage hit an all-time low yet again. 2.78% is the national average. That is truly unprecedented. The previous week had been the lowest ever at 2.81%. Never thought we would see 30-year fixed rate mortgages under 3%. If you are considering getting a loan, you're going to want to do it pretty quickly. If you are considering refining, a refinance at these rates are probably making sense for anyone who closed on a loan more than 6-8 months ago. It's hard to imagine a situation where you wouldn't come out ahead on a long-term play. One thing we look at to see if this market is going to continue is to look at the demand side. One way that we do that is looking at mortgage applications. Right now, we're seeing mortgage applications are up 23% over this time last year. That's down a little bit from their peak at just over 30% back in August, but it's still quite high. That indicates to us that people are still looking at buying homes. They are still getting mortgages. We do still see more demand. Also nationally, this is a big number. The year-over-year median home price for the country, so huge sample size, is up 12.2%. That's obviously a non-sustainable number. We're seeing a run-up right now. We're seeing similar numbers here in Hawaii. Total homes on market is down 38.3%. So again, we're seeing a real tightening of supply when there are more people entering the market and more demand. Days on market, 53 days. That's 13 days less than at this point last year. I can tell you that in our market, we're seeing some things that we haven't seen for a real long time. It's very common to have completely sight unseen transactions in which the buyer literally will never see the property till a month or so after they buy it. That's very common out here right now. Most of the showings that we're seeing right now are virtual showings. That's beginning to change a little bit with the quarantine being lifted if you have the multiple tests. But we are still seeing a lot of virtual showings. On the contract side, we're also seeing that it's very competitive and buyers are having to go the extra mile to make their offers as clean as possible. Some are including even acceleration clauses, which I haven't seen in our market in a long time. I'm also seeing appraisal addendums from time to time. This is an addendum that says the buyer will make up the difference between the appraisal value and the sale price of the home. The other big change is that people are making their offers much cleaner. I'm seeing buyers waive the cleaning, waiving the survey and staking, waiving the termite inspection report. They're doing everything they can to make it as easy for the seller to pick them because so many of the situations are competitive. That's something to take into account in pretty much any market right now. For us here in Kona, we're seeing that the lifting of the quarantine with the double testing system we saw a bunch of people come in on the first week, and it sounds like maybe those were a lot of part-time owners ready to get over here. In the second week, we saw fewer travelers, so the numbers are not big. There's not a ton of people coming back and traveling right now. In more local news, Mitch Roth won the mayoral election. He came in with 58.4% of the votes. I think this is really going to be good for not only real estate, but also for West Hawaii. It's no secret that Mayor Harry Kim was anti-development, was anti-West Hawaii, and had made the permitting process and inspection process very difficult for people wanting to build a home. We do think Mitch Roth is going to be a little more accommodating to that. We do also think he's going to be a little bit more pro-business and helping our local economy. So I'm really hopeful that Mitch Roth will be a move in the right direction for us here in Hawaii and in West Hawaii. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you tuning in. Let me know what you think. Do you prefer this format or do you like the old format better? I'm happy to present it in either way. We're going to have links to all these articles down in the description below so you can look at those on your free time if you'd like. Thanks a lot for watching, and aloha.